What's up?
Oh, I'm just compiling all the top sports scores, news, and odds so I can make the very best bets.
Me too. BetOnline.ag.
Join today and receive your 50% welcome bonus at betonline.ag.
So, John, you're right. The whole, hey, it's easy, it's cheap, low money. You fill out the roster, you've got some insurance. But if you're the Celtics, who would you even target in this draft? I mean, obviously, maybe some guards. I mean, Brad loves those 3-guard lineups, and we'll talk about that a little bit on the Terry email in a second. But
right, yeah. The guy that I have I guess my heart set on right now is Brandon Clark. He's a guy. He's from Gonzaga. He came in at the combine a little bit undersized, a little bit short wingspan, but his numbers, his agility numbers, and his jumping numbers are completely off the charts. And the Celtics, I think he's the type of 4-man that you need next to Al Horford, who can kind of clean up some of the weak side, shot blocking, quick enough to guard on the perimeter, but can also, really defend and rebound at a high level. Challenge is, offensively, he's not really there. Shot isn't quite there. I think a lot of people were looking at his teammate, Rui Hachimura, who was a guy from Japan who played with Gonzaga, and again, kind of that 4-5. He's a 6'8" guy, kind of rangy, shoots from space, got a little bit of skill to him, but certainly not the defender that you see in a guy like Clark. Again, undersized, but to me, what this team needs, they need more Brandon Clarks. They need less people who are shooting. They need more grit, more hustle. Brandon Clark seems like the type of guy you plug into this team. I'm not saying he's Marcus Smart, but I think he fits those pieces together in a way that Shemi really wasn't able to do. I think Shemi has those abilities too. Certainly in terms of size, he's not as Shemi's bigger, bulkier, but in terms of his raw numbers, Clark jumping out of the gym type stats. Those are the types. I think that's what the Celtics, in terms of need, that's what I'm looking at. Somebody's going to
only available at 14. You think?
Yeah,
not
I think
sliding.
So.
Yeah.
Well, DraftNet says that he's going 23, so he could be available for one of those later picks. It's funny. It's been a long time, Justin, since we've talked about the draft in a way we've really had to talk about who's going to fall, right?
How long you're right. We've always been at the top, so we're looking at like 3 or 4 players, and that's it.
Right. This is like us going back to the old days, to who's going to fall.
How
to
do we
14?
pluck a gem? How do we pluck a gem? Yeah.
Right. We're kind of in that spot. Now, there's a couple other guys. Romeo Langford's a guy from Indiana.
Well, let me
you want to go back to him?
Yeah,
sure.
well, I want to ask you, what about the 2 Kentucky players, Tyler Hero, PJ Washington? Any interest in those 2?
Keldon Johnson.
I mean, Tyler's long, right? He's a long guard. PJ Washington can shoot the 3 and space the floor.
This is probably.
Is this the Duke thing? Like,
yeah,
I can't even get I can't get an objective response from you. On
can't.
This.
I was thinking. And I gave them a chance. And they picked a certain guy out of Kentucky a few years back with the 14th pick, and it did not work out well for the Celtics or for said player. So I'm swearing off the Kentucky thing for a while. And that's probably not fair to Keldon Johnson or, any of these guys, Tyler Hero. I mean, that team was never as good as it should have been, the Kentucky team. They've got all these. I mean, if I go through 1, 2, 3. I mean, they got 3 guys in this, projected to go in this first round. And what did Kentucky do this year? They win the SEC. No. How far did they go in the tournament? Not at all. I mean, they just never put it together. And that happens. Duke's had teams where it just didn't gel, but I'm just too biased, Justin. I can't even go there.
Well, I mean, both of those players, probably Tyler Hero is not going to make it to 20, right? Most mocks have him up a little bit higher, but I guess you can't really tell in this draft.
You can't.
Because the drop-off, is sort of precipitous, but there's
Yeah.
like a mid-level area that goes on for a while. The
Yeah.
drop to the mid-level sort of, talent happens fast, but
Yeah.
then it kind of sits for a while. This could be a kind of draft where you get a Kawhi, in the teens, where you get like these players that get drafted later just because there's no discernible difference in a big pack.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I mean, once you get past, say, Culver, 7, 8, 9, that right now they've got Culver, Reddish, and Hayes kind of going in that spot. The Draft Express
And you're
guys.
not even in love with Reddish as it is, right?
I thought he would have been better than he was. I think he's still gonna be a good player. I think he's got skills. I think it was a bad situation
Too many good
and
players, which
too many good
happens a
players.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
So do
not a
you
Kobe
think he
White
could be a
guy.
steal even?
Oh yeah, yeah, and I think he's still properly rated probably for where he is. The year did not seem to hurt his draft stock
I mean,
all
think
that
about your
much.
boy Bagley. Everybody thought he was going to be a total
Total
miss,
bust. Yeah.
total bust, and he
Yep.
came out and just did the exact same
Yeah.
thing that he was doing at Duke. The numbers are almost the same, right?
They
Just
are.
the rebounds and the points, and it's all grit work, and so it's interesting because sometimes that stuff doesn't translate. So
Yeah.
to your point, maybe the reason that he didn't, who knows what happens with Reddish, but
No, and I think that's a very good point. There is fit as a big part of this. Jaylen Brown, right? I mean, that's probably a number one case for Celtics fans to look at, a reason why you can't necessarily jump off of stats or what they've done in college to say, oh, this is how they're going to project, because you can't. You look at raw skills and it's a crapshoot. It really is, and um, I think you look at size, you look at build, you look at physicality, but then does that mean they work hard? Does that mean that they can get, they can get a shot? I mean, I've come to believe that you can learn how to shoot at this point. If Marcus Smart can learn how to shoot 36% from three, anybody can learn how to shoot. It's just finding the guys who will put the work in and the time in. So
anybody can learn how to shoot.
pretty much,
Oh, I don't
yeah,
know. Although Jaylen
if you
Brown
want,
did, and everybody said he couldn't shoot, right?
right.
So
Yeah, but I think this is the funny thing about this draft. I think this draft is one of those drafts, I think, where everyone says, oh, it's top heavy. After Zion, there's not much, blah, blah, blah. RJ Barrett, John Morant, right? We know those three names, and then it drops off. But when you look at the names in this draft, right, you go down, uh, going to the Draft Express guys, if I'm going off of what's on ESPN, there's a lot of names that were considered top 5, top 8 talents that didn't have a good year. Bol, injury issues, never really played much all year. Romeo Langford was hurt this year. Kevin Porter had some eligibility issues. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why guys didn't work out, but they had talent at one point. Now, were they highly rated because their compatriots weren't that great? Or were they highly rated and they were unnecessarily knocked down? And as teams go through this workout process, these guys start shooting back up the board. That's what I always kind of watch for, is
that's the fun
what are the
part.
names?
The fun
Yeah,
part
I
is
think
all
so.
these workouts. Who did the Celtics bring in? Who
Yep.
did they talk to? Who do they have interest in? That's all going to be happening very soon, right? The final starts on tomorrow night.
Yeah, and they've been working guys out. I think they've already had 20, 25 guys in already that we know
Yeah,
of
but
that
it's
have
when
been
they bring them
reported.
back in.
Right, the
It's
second
almost a
time.
sure sign that that's somebody that they're interested in. Almost
Yep.
every single player that they've drafted has
Yep.
had a second workout, right? Jaylen Brown in a second workout. Marcus
Smart.
Smart had a second
Yep.
workout. I believe Tatum did, although I think that one was quieter. I don't know that the second workout with Tatum was known until maybe even after the draft. I don't know why I think that, but I don't know
Yeah,
if
I
you
think you're right.
remember.
I think that's right. Yeah. So we're kind of back in the draft game, which I love. Big draft guy, right? And I think this is the thing though. When you look at all those guys, and again, you go down to Cameron Johnson. He was a top 10 guy going into the year. Keldon Johnson, Porter. The Celtics, I mean, so they've got 3 picks. They got 14, they've got 20, and they got 22. You've got 3 swings at a guy who right now, after the season, isn't viewed very highly. But who knows? I mean, Draymond Green was a second round pick. Terry Rozier a year ago was seen as surely at least eligible to receive a number one pick in return. It was the point guard of that team that made that run into the conference finals, and you can get that guy in this type of draft. I don't think that this draft is all that much different from the where Terry Rozier was picked. So. And then, of course, Giannis, the next MVP of the league, was picked, in the middle of a very weak draft and turned into the MVP, or what I think
It's
will be
almost
the
like you
MVP.
should go with the high upside athletic guys. You almost want to just gamble that way and see what happens. And with 3 picks, the Celtics always talk about it. Zarin says it's just another swing of the bat, just another swing of the bat. So I think you gotta gamble on those players and try to put them in the right culture and see if you got a guy who's motivated. I definitely think work ethic is a big deal. So maybe it's work ethic and athleticism, and then you go from there.